So Drake's accused UMG and Spotify of botting streams for Not Like Us to inflate the numbers, right? And you know what happened because of that? Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us is aiming for a roughly 440% increase in US sales and 20% increase in US streams this week.
You want to know how I know Drake's lawyers are just unserious people? Because all UMG has to do to get rid of this defamation case is play that one video. Y'all know which video? That at concert, there was some blue lighting.
What happens when the world's biggest rap star goes head-to-head with the world's most powerful music label? Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. Drake's feud with Universal Music Group isn't just a celebrity squabble. It's a high-stakes power struggle that could change the music industry forever. But here's the million-dollar question. Is Drake standing up for himself, or is he playing with fire? Let's break it all down. For over a decade, Drake wasn't just a superstar, he was the superstar. Every album, every single, and every tour set records and defined the culture. He didn't just dominate the charts, he was the charts. Universal Music Group, the largest record label in the world, saw him as their crown jewel. He wasn't just another artist on their roster, he was their MVP, bringing in millions of dollars in revenue year after year. With his unstoppable rise came power. In 2021, Drake signed a jaw-dropping deal with UMG, reportedly worth between $400 and $500 million. It was one of the biggest contracts in music history, an agreement that most artists could only dream of. But this wasn't just about a paycheck. This deal was a symbol of status, proof that Drake was playing in a league of his own. UMG's CEO, Lucian Grange, was one of Drake's biggest supporters. He once said that Drake could name his price, and UMG would give him whatever he wanted. And for a long time, that was true. Drake had perks and privileges that few artists could even imagine. Exclusive control over his music, creative freedom, and even rumors of a stake in UMG's vast catalog. Some insiders claimed that Drake's influence was so massive that he could shape the future of the industry itself. But with great power comes great expectations. The music industry is built on contracts and loyalty, at least on the surface. Behind the scenes, it's a cutthroat world of business, control, and survival. Somewhere along the way, Drake's relationship with UMG began to shift. Reports say that he started asking for more money, more freedom, more ownership. By 2023, he was pushing for a new deal worth a staggering $600 million. And that's when UMG pumped the brakes. Lucian Grange, the same man who once called Drake irreplaceable, wasn't willing to play ball this time. The label's message was clear. Even for Drake, there were limits. But for Drake, it felt like a betrayal. He believed he had earned the right to call the shots. After all, wasn't he the reason UMG had made billions in the first place? This wasn't just a business dispute, it was personal. And when Drake felt the door slam in his face, he didn't walk away quietly. Instead, he took it as a declaration of war, and that's when the lawsuits began. At first, Drake's partnership with UMG seemed unbreakable, like a perfect match between a record-breaking artist and the world's most powerful label. But in the world of music, loyalty only lasts as long as the money and the power stay balanced. And for Drake, that balance began to tilt in the worst way. It all started when Drake asked for something bigger, something unprecedented. After securing a $400 million deal in 2021, he set his sights on an even bigger payout, a $600 million contract that would solidify his status as not just an artist, but a mogul. But UMG wasn't ready to open the vaults again. They'd already given him more freedom and control than any other artist in their history. And insiders say the label was concerned that Drake's growing demands would set a dangerous precedent. The response from Lucian Grange, UMG's CEO, was cold and calculated. No. For Drake, it wasn't just a rejection, it was a slap in the face. He believed he had earned the right to ask for more. After all, wasn't he the artist who helped UMG rake in billions of dollars? But to UMG, this was business, not friendship. And that's where Drake made his first critical mistake, thinking that loyalty and gratitude had a place in a billion-dollar industry built on contracts and control. But Drake wasn't about to back down. When UMG refused his new deal, he took things to the next level by filing 2 lawsuits that sent shockwaves through the music world. In the first lawsuit, Drake accused UMG of manipulating streaming numbers to favor Kendrick Lamar's diss track, Not Like Us, effectively sabotaging Drake's standing. The second lawsuit was even messier. Drake claimed that UMG had allowed Kendrick to defame him by releasing the track despite its controversial lyrics. What Drake saw as a fight for fairness, UMG saw as a betrayal. Lucian Grange, once Drake's strongest ally, reportedly felt blindsided and things escalated quickly. UMG issued a rare public statement calling Drake's accusations absurd and offensive. Spotify, which was also dragged into the lawsuits, fired back, labeling Drake's claims as baseless and accusing him of using the legal system to fuel conspiracy theories. This wasn't just a disagreement, it was a declaration of war. Drake had gone from UMG's golden child to their biggest threat, and in an industry where control is everything, UMG wasn't about to let one artist, no matter how powerful, rewrite the rules. Behind closed doors, the tension was palpable. Rumors began to swirl about secret meetings, damage control strategies, and even the possibility of UMG cutting Drake loose if the situation worsened. For the first time in years, Drake wasn't calling the shots. He was fighting just to keep his seat at the table. This was the moment everything changed. The golden era of Drake and UMG was officially over, and from here on out, things would only get messier. If there's one thing Kendrick Lamar is known for, it's his ability to stay silent until it's time to strike, and when he did, it wasn't subtle. His diss track Not Like Us dropped like a bombshell, filled with cryptic jabs that many believed were aimed directly at Drake. The song wasn't just another rap battle moment, it felt personal. Kendrick's lyrics painted a picture of an artist who refuses to bow down to the industry machine, subtly calling out those who he felt had used backdoor tactics to maintain their dominance. Fans immediately took to social media, dissecting every line, convinced that Kendrick was exposing Drake's insecurities and calling him out for being a product of corporate backing. But here's where things get even more interesting. Rumors swirled that Drake wasn't just upset about the diss track itself, he was furious because Kendrick was allegedly blocking Drake's attempt to acquire a stake in his music catalog. If that's true, it means Drake wasn't just competing with Kendrick on the charts, he was trying to control a piece of Kendrick's legacy. Kendrick, of course, stayed quiet, letting his music do the talking, and that silence spoke volumes. While Drake was tied up in lawsuits and public drama, Kendrick maintained his mystique, refusing to address the feud directly, but he didn't need to. His track had already shifted public perception. Suddenly, Drake wasn't just seen as the king of rap, he was seen as someone who might be losing his grip. To make matters worse for Drake, Kendrick's track was embraced by fans and critics alike. The streaming numbers skyrocketed, and it became clear that Not Like Us wasn't going away anytime soon. Some even argued that the controversy only boosted the song's visibility, making Drake's accusations of stream manipulation seem like paranoia. Behind the scenes, insiders speculated that Kendrick had known exactly how Drake would react, and that the diss track was a strategic move to trigger him. If that's true, it worked like a charm. While Drake was filing lawsuits and making headlines for his accusations, Kendrick stayed one step ahead, carefully avoiding any direct public engagement with the drama. But Kendrick wasn't just an artist in this story, he was a symbol of something bigger. To many, he represented the anti-industry rebel, the artist who refused to play by the rules or align himself with corporate giants. And to Drake, that made Kendrick more than just a rival, it made him dangerous. By positioning himself as the underdog, Kendrick turned the narrative in his favor. He wasn't the villain in this story, he was the David to Drake's Goliath, and with every rumor and cryptic lyric, Kendrick added fuel to the fire, all while keeping his hands clean. In the eyes of the public, the feud wasn't just about rap, it was a battle of authenticity versus influence, independence versus power, and while Drake was busy fighting legal battles, Kendrick had already won the war of perception. When Drake filed not one, but 2 lawsuits, the music world knew this wasn't just a petty feud, it was a full-blown war. His first lawsuit accused Universal Music Group, UMG, of engaging in RICO violations, a term usually reserved for organized crime. According to Drake, UMG and Spotify had allegedly conspired to inflate the streaming numbers of Kendrick Lamar's diss track Not Like Us, while sabotaging his own releases. The second lawsuit took things even further. Drake claimed that UMG not only allowed Kendrick's track to be released despite its defamatory content, but actively profited from it. He accused the label of turning a blind eye to lyrics that he said falsely painted him as a certified PDF file, a damning claim that could tarnish anyone's reputation. In Drake's eyes, UMG had crossed a line, using one of their artists to prop up another at his expense. But UMG wasn't about to let Drake dictate the narrative. The label's response was swift and brutal. In a rare public statement, they called Drake's accusations offensive and absurd, claiming that they held their artists to the highest ethical standards. Their message was clear: UMG didn't need to manipulate streams. Fans chose was the music they wanted to hear. And as if to drive the point home, Spotify also issued a scathing rebuttal, calling Drake's claims far-fetched and accusing him of wasting the court's time. But Drake wasn't backing down. He demanded discovery, essentially asking Spotify and UMG to hand over internal documents that could prove or disprove his claims. But instead of complying, Spotify filed a motion to dismiss the request, arguing that Drake's lawsuit was built on speculation, not evidence. They accused him of using legal loopholes to dig up dirt because his claims wouldn't hold up in a formal lawsuit. The courtroom drama didn't end there. Legal experts weighed in, with many saying that Drake's lawsuit seemed more like a publicity move than a solid case. Some believed he was trying to force UMG into renegotiating his contract by making their internal practices public, practices that labels usually guard fiercely. Others speculated that Drake's endgame wasn't just about money, but about exposing what he believed was a corrupt system propping up his biggest rival. But here's where things get messy. The lawsuits opened old wounds, dragging UMG's CEO Lucian Grange back into the spotlight. Grange had already faced controversy after being tied to Diddy's legal issues through a previous lawsuit, and now with Drake's claims, his reputation was once again under scrutiny. Drake's accusations weren't just about unfair treatment, they hinted at something darker. He painted UMG as a puppet master, pulling the strings behind the scenes, controlling who rises and who falls. And while Drake believed he was shining a light on industry secrets, some wondered if he was spiraling, driven by paranoia and betrayal. The legal battle turned into a media circus, with fans and critics picking sides. Was Drake fighting for justice, or was he digging himself deeper into a hole? Meanwhile, Kendrick Lamar remained silent, letting the chaos unfold without lifting a finger. And UMG, a corporate giant with seemingly endless resources, tightened its grip, determined to squash the rebellion before it set a dangerous precedent. As the lawsuits unfolded, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about music. It was about power, reputation, and control. And with both sides refusing to back down, the stakes had never been higher. Behind every public feud in the music industry lies a web of secrets, alliances, and hidden agendas. And Drake's war with Universal Music Group, UMG, was no different. As the lawsuits played out, whispers of deeper industry scandals began to surface, dragging some of the biggest names in music into the spotlight. One of the most explosive claims revolved around UMG's CEO, Lucian Grange. While Grange had built a reputation as a brilliant but ruthless executive, his name had already come up in a separate controversy involving Diddy. According to legal documents from a past lawsuit, Grange's connections to powerful players in the music world weren't always squeaky clean. There were allegations of secret financial deals, backroom negotiations, and even ties to lawsuits accusing high-profile figures of serious misconduct. Although these claims were never proven, they painted a picture of an industry leader who was willing to do whatever it took to protect UMG's empire. Drake's accusations against UMG seemed to tap into this narrative by claiming that UMG had manipulated streams and engaged in corporate sabotage. He wasn't just calling out his label, he was suggesting that the entire industry was built on deception and control. And to some fans, it made sense. After all, UMG wasn't just any label, it was a global powerhouse that either owned or had stakes in most of the major labels across the industry. If anyone had the power to influence streaming numbers and public perception, it was them. But things took an even darker turn when rumors of catalog manipulation surfaced. Some insiders claimed that Drake had been quietly trying to secure ownership of other artists' music rights, including Kendrick Lamar's catalog, a move that could have changed the balance of power in the industry. When Kendrick's diss track Not Like Us dropped, some speculated that it wasn't just a lyrical attack, it was a message. You don't control me. At the same time, UMG insiders hinted that Drake had crossed a line by airing out internal disputes so publicly. There were claims that Drake's lawsuit could open the floodgates, forcing labels to reveal the kind of confidential deals that they've spent decades keeping under wraps. Some even believed that UMG feared Drake's demands for transparency because it could shine a light on questionable practices like streaming boosts, payola, and equity deals given to favored artists. And then there was the issue of loyalty, or the lack thereof. Drake had always been seen as a company man, someone who played the industry game well enough to rise to the top without ever burning bridges. But his lawsuits against UMG shattered that image. Suddenly, he wasn't just a superstar, he was a whistleblower. Whether or not his claims held water didn't matter anymore, the damage was done. Fans and industry insiders were already wondering if Drake, of all people, was willing to accuse his label of corruption. What else was happening behind closed doors? Even more shocking were the whispers that Lucian Grange had personally warned Drake to cool it after Kendrick's track dropped, reportedly suggesting that the song's lyrics could lead to dangerous revelations about old scandals, including sensitive allegations that the industry would rather keep buried. But Drake didn't back down. Instead, he doubled down, going public with lawsuits that threatened to blow the lid off the music world's deepest secrets. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If Drake's claims about fake streams, bot accounts, and defamation were true, it could force the music industry to change forever. But if he was wrong, he risked not only losing the lawsuits but also his reputation and possibly his career. UMG, on the other hand, seemed determined to remind Drake that he was still just one artist in their empire. No matter how powerful he thought he was up against a multi-billion-dollar corporation with the resources to crush even the biggest stars. In the end, the industry's secrets and allegations weren't just background noise. They were the foundation of the entire feud. This wasn't just about one diss track or a failed contract negotiation. It was a battle over who really controls the music and how much the public is allowed to know. If there's one thing we know about Drake, it's that he doesn't stay quiet for long. When UMG and Kendrick Lamar refused to back down, Drake turned to his greatest weapon, his music. And soon the rumors started swirling. Reports began circulating that Drake was preparing a scathing diss track aimed not just at Kendrick, but at the very label that helped make him a superstar. For fans, this wasn't surprising. Drake has a history of using his lyrics to air out grievances and settle scores. But this time, the stakes were higher. This wasn't a rap beef for the culture. It was personal, and it was about power. According to insiders, Drake's new diss wasn't just going to call out Kendrick's claims. It was set to expose UMG's behind-the-scenes tactics and paint a damning picture of the music industry's biggest players. The timing couldn't be more deliberate. Drake's camp hinted that the track would debut during his upcoming tour in Australia, a strategic move designed to make a global impact. Social media lit up with speculation. Would he call out names directly? Would he double down on the defamation allegations? Or would he drop cryptic bars that left fans deciphering clues for weeks? But while Drake's loyal fan base was hyped, others weren't so sure this was the right move. After all, diss tracks can backfire, especially when the target isn't just another rapper, but an entire corporate giant. Some critics warned that by continuing to poke the bear, Drake was risking more than just his reputation. He was putting his entire career on the line. UMG wasn't just a label, it was the gatekeeper of the industry. If they wanted to, they could make life very difficult for any artist, even someone as powerful as Drake. But Drake seemed unfazed. He wanted the world to see that he wasn't afraid of UMG or their influence. Rumor has it that the new track would feature biting commentary on how some artists are manufactured by streaming algorithms rather than fan support. He was ready to remind everyone that, in his eyes, true dominance isn't about industry backing. It's about raw talent and cultural relevance. However, UMG wasn't sitting idly by. According to some reports, the label had quietly warned Drake's team that releasing a diss track aimed at them could violate the terms of his contract, opening the door to potential lawsuits or penalties. But for Drake, it seemed like the point of no return. He was already locked in a legal war with the label. One more track couldn't make things worse, right? Still, Kendrick's shadow loomed large over this feud. Fans wondered if Drake's new track would reignite the rap rivalry, or if it would focus entirely on UMG. Kendrick, for his part, stayed completely silent, which only fueled the anticipation. It was as if Kendrick was playing chess while Drake was playing poker, each move building tension, with fans waiting to see who would fold first. The potential diss track became a symbol of everything this feud represented: authenticity versus corporate control, individual freedom versus industry loyalty. And while Drake's decision to go on the offensive thrilled his fans, it also raised an uncomfortable question. Is he fighting for justice, or is this all just ego? As the world waits for the diss track to drop, one thing is clear: Drake isn't walking away from this fight. But the real question is, will this be his victory lap or his final misstep? If Drake thought he could wage war against Universal Music Group, UMG, without consequences, he was sorely mistaken. UMG wasn't just any label. They were a multi-billion-dollar empire with a history of dominating the industry. And when Drake came for them, they responded with the force of a corporate titan determined to protect its throne. Almost immediately after the lawsuits went public, UMG issued a rare and scathing statement. They called Drake's accusations absurd and offensive, insisting that their artist's success was built on fan support, not backdoor deals or inflated streams. The message was clear. They weren't about to let Drake tarnish their reputation without a fight. But the public statement was just the beginning. Behind closed doors, UMG's legal team went into overdrive, preparing a multi-layered defense aimed at dismantling Drake's claims piece by piece. Some insiders claimed that UMG wasn't just planning to defend themselves, they were preparing to go on the offensive. Reports surfaced that UMG's lawyers were considering a counterclaim, accusing Drake of breaching his contract and damaging the label's public image with false allegations. The label's strategy wasn't just legal, it was also financial. Rumors spread that UMG was quietly leveraging its influence to limit Drake's streaming visibility. While there was no official proof, fans began noticing strange activity. Certain playlists featuring Drake's music weren't being promoted as heavily as before, and some speculated that UMG was using its clout to remind Drake of their power. Meanwhile, Spotify, caught in the crossfire, also escalated its defense. In their court filings, they accused Drake of using the lawsuit as a publicity stunt to distract from his own shortcomings. Spotify's legal team argued that there was zero evidence of bot activity or stream manipulation, and that Drake's demands for internal documents were nothing more than a fishing expedition designed to stir up controversy. But UMG wasn't stopping there. Reports emerged that executives were holding internal meetings to discuss contingency plans, including what would happen if their relationship with Drake became irreparable. For years, Drake had been their most valuable asset, bringing in massive revenue. But in their eyes, no artist was bigger than the label. If they had to, UMG was prepared to cut ties and make an example out of Drake to show the world that no one, not even their golden child, was untouchable. And they had precedent. Over the years, UMG had weathered storms with some of the biggest names in music and emerged stronger every time. From contract disputes to accusations of monopolizing the industry, they'd faced it all and survived. To them, this was just another battle, and they had the resources to outlast any artist who challenged their authority. Still, UMG knew that public perception was critical. They didn't want to come across as the villain in a David versus Goliath narrative, so while their lawyers sharpened their legal strategy, their PR team went into full damage control. Carefully worded interviews, strategic media leaks, and glowing press about their commitment to artists flooded the headlines. They were determined to frame Drake's accusations as baseless claims from an artist upset that he didn't get what he wanted. But for every denial from UMG, there were whispers that Drake might be telling the truth. Fans and critics couldn't help but wonder, why was UMG reacting so strongly? Was there something they were trying to hide? Despite their public confidence, UMG's executives were reportedly worried behind the scenes. The last thing they wanted was for this feud to expose the inner workings of their empire. If Drake's legal demands for transparency succeeded, it could force UMG and other major labels to reveal details about their marketing strategies, streaming deals, and artist contracts. The very foundation of the modern music industry could be shaken. UMG's response wasn't just about protecting their reputation, it was about sending a message to every artist in their roster: don't cross us. And while Drake's fanbase stayed loyal, there was no denying that UMG had the power to make his next moves difficult. The question wasn't whether UMG would win the legal battle, it was how far they were willing to go to silence the noise. In this corporate showdown, UMG wasn't just defending themselves from Drake's accusations, they were defending their empire from an artist who dared to challenge the system. And as the dust settled, one thing became clear: UMG had no intention of backing down. But would their show of force backfire and fuel public sympathy for Drake? Or would it crush him under the weight of their influence? As the dust begins to settle, or rather intensify, one question looms large: where does Drake go from here? For years, he stood at the top of the music world, seemingly untouchable, but now he's in the middle of a fight that could redefine not only his career, but the way artists challenge the industry's most powerful gatekeepers. Drake's decision to take on Universal Music Group wasn't just bold, it was unprecedented. He went from being their golden child to their loudest critic, accusing the very machine that helped him rise to the top of playing dirty. But was this a fight for justice, or a miscalculated power move driven by ego and frustration? If Drake wins, or even negotiates a favorable settlement, he could set a historic precedent. He'd be seen as the artist who dared to pull back the curtain on shady industry practices and won. This could open the floodgates for other artists to challenge the labels controlling their music, potentially leading to greater transparency in streaming practices and contract negotiations. Drake's legacy would be more than just platinum albums. albums, it would be a revolution. But if he loses, the consequences could be devastating. He risks being alienated from the very platforms and systems that have amplified his music to global audiences. And UMG has made it clear they aren't afraid to cut off even their most lucrative stars if it means preserving their dominance. Drake's lawsuits could backfire, painting him as a bitter artist who cried foul when things didn't go his way. Then there's the risk of public fatigue. For every loyal fan who sees Drake as a warrior standing up to the system, there's someone who thinks he's creating unnecessary drama. The longer this feud drags on, the more it could overshadow his music, turning him from an innovator into a headline-making controversy magnet. The wild card in all of this is Drake himself. He's built a career on reinvention, turning setbacks into comebacks. If anyone can bounce back from a feud this massive, it's him. And with rumors of a diss track looming and an international tour on the horizon, Drake may already be plotting his next move. But even if he's able to recover musically, the question remains, has his relationship with the industry been damaged beyond repair? UMG isn't just one label, it's a powerhouse that owns or influences countless music platforms and labels worldwide. An artist's success often hinges on who's willing to open the right doors. Has Drake closed too many of them? In the end, this fight isn't just about one artist or one record label. It's about power, loyalty, and the price of ambition. Drake may have started this war to take control of his narrative, but now the story has taken on a life of its own. So, what's next for Drake? Is he on the brink of a groundbreaking victory or his greatest downfall? Whatever happens, one thing is certain, the world will be watching every move he makes. And as we wait to see how it all unfolds, ask yourself this: would you bet against the man who's built a career on defying the odds? The next chapter of Drake's story is coming, and if history has taught us anything, it's that this isn't the end, it's just the beginning.